The purpose of this show is to guide you to realign with habits that get you to live the life you've always dreamed of. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with Jesse Ewing. This is the habit-based lifestyle where you can access your full potential right now. Finally break free from destructive habits. That dream life, if you want it, you can have it. This is where you transform your health, mind, business, and relationships, or do nothing and keep your life the way it is. But if you're ready for change, you're in the right place. This is where you're gonna learn how to live a habit-based lifestyle. You are tuning in to the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Jesse Ewing. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle. Let's go.
I got a gentleman, Chris Burress, co-founder of SES Research Industries, entrepreneur. He's got a diverse background as an engineer, scientist, and entrepreneur. And Chris and his partner confirmed the findings on Carbon 60, C60, not to be confused with others, but ESS 60.
Yep.
This product has a Nobel Prize winning technology, originally meant for military defense, now sought out by global mega corporations. So Chris, thank you for being on here today.
Jesse, so thank you so much for having me. And I know that's there's a lot of a big mouthful in the introduction there. So, it only takes about 45 minutes to break that down into little tiny pieces.
Yeah. So tell me about kind of your journey where maybe start back at a certain place and then we'll work our way into, the Carbon 60 and ESS 60. Where did you originally kind of start?
Yeah. So I actually started the company SES Research while I was still in college. I was studying mechanical engineering, and one of my business partners approached me and said, hey, I want to build this equipment. I want to manufacture this product, the SS60, and I want to sell it. At the time, this is kind of interesting. So this is way back, and we started in 1991. At the time, 1 gram of the material was selling for $6,000.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. So my business partner comes from an entrepreneurial background. He was actually working with the material at the Texas Center for Superconductivity. That's on the University of Houston campus. And one of the professors was kind of walking by, they're separating the material, and he's like, hey, this is kind of an expensive material. You guys are young guys. You should go start this company. And my business partner, Robert Wong, was like, yes, I should, for $6,000 a gram. So they kind of grabbed me there. There was another business partner at the time. They grabbed me with my mechanical engineering background. They wanted help kind of building the equipment, designing the equipment, and putting it all together, and really somebody to work really long, hard hours for little or no pay in the beginning. And I kind of raised my hand and said, okay, I'll do that. I always kind of knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. The other business partner kind of went away. And in 1991, we actually are the first company that still exists to deliver commercial quantities of carbon nanomaterials. And so you're like, hey, I tell this to people. I'm like, hey, well, what is a carbon nanomaterial? What does that even mean? And kind of the best way to describe it, before 1985, all we really knew about carbon, or the kind of two classes we would put it into, would be graphite and diamond. And then in 1985 at Rice University, also here in Houston, Dr. Richard Smalley and his group discovered the third form of carbon. They called it Fullerenes, after the famous architect Buckminster Fuller, and the kind of comfortable name that they gave to the molecule was buckyballs. We call it, here at SES Research, we call it ESS 60. So that's how you know you're getting the pure material. The best way to describe it, so now you're wondering well, what is this ESS 60? What does it look like? If you think about a soccer ball, the lines on the soccer ball represent the bonds between the carbon atoms. So you have this spherical molecule of 60 carbon atoms. And you mentioned that it was used in defense. They knew it was going to be very useful. In fact, they knew it was going to be useful in a whole lot of industries. And that's why Dr. Richard Smalley discovered it in 1985. And when he and his group won the Nobel Prize by 1996. That's a short short 11 years, I don't know if I didn't really know this, the history of Nobel Prizes is it's usually 50, 60, often the researcher has passed on before they actually award the Nobel Prize. And so to earn it in 11 short years, the entire scientific community was like, this is a really important discovery.
Wow.
So that's kind of, the birth of the molecule.
Okay, so you were in college back then at this time, 1991, you were at University of Houston.
Go Cougs.
Are you, let me see, is that Warren Moon?
Yes.
Yeah.
He won the Heisman when I was in school with him. I didn't know him, but yeah. In fact, my business coach was his RA at the dormitory.
Okay. Yeah. I'm a Seahawk fan. He's one of our announcers still. So
yeah, he did amazing player. The run and shoot.
Yeah. So back then, you kind of jump on board, I'm sure, as this young kid, like, hey, this would be awesome if this turns out to be what it really is. But like, when did you know that this was really something that was going to like change lives and really impact people?
Well, maybe it's worth explaining a little bit about why the scientific community was convinced that this would be so valuable. So, I don't know if you're familiar with the benzene ring, right? So it's actually a toxic material, but it's ubiquitous in our society. All plastics are founded on the benzene ring. Most medicines are founded on the benzene ring. I was actually in an interview the other day, and this guy had tats right here on his forearm, and they were is a benzene ring, and then the kind of things that were attached to it. So one of them was adrenaline, and one was something. I consider him a lifer. He's a lifelong dedication to supplements. So that benzene ring is ubiquitous in our society. Really, the scientists figured this buckyball, this 3D buckyball, ESS 60, was actually a 3D version of benzene. And that's why they awarded the Nobel Prize so quickly. That's why they knew it would be so valuable. And we sold that material to research institutions around the world from 1991, and we still do today, but this is kind of the story, until about 2012. They knew that it would probably have medical applications. They didn't know the specific medical applications. In reality, the ESS 60 molecule performed as well or better than the current best material in almost every application that they put it in. And so it was really exciting. And in the early days, some friends or whoever I was talking to about the molecule, they'd be like, well, so what's it used for? And the kind of running joke with us was, well, it's really good for funding. Like, they had just won a Nobel Prize with it. And if you wanted to write a grant and included ESS 60 in it, then you were going to get funded. Fast forward to like 2012. So again, we're selling it. They use it in tires, they use it in inks, they use it in solar cells. It's cost competitive with lithium and battery cells. So this is really this amazing molecule. And 2012, again, because they knew that as a society, we're going to use this material a lot. They wanted to do toxicity studies on it, right? So how much of it, if it's floating around in the air, is it going to be dangerous? If you end up inhaling it or swallowing it, is it going to be dangerous? So they did this toxicity study. Now this is where it gets really interesting and kind of why I'm here today. So they did this toxicity study. They gave rats olive water. They gave rats, and that's the control group, olive oil, and then they gave rats olive oil with ESS 60 in it. Again, they assumed it would be toxic. And instead of those rats dying sooner, the ones given olive oil with ESS 60 in it, they lived 90% longer.
Wow.
So that and as soon as that kind of came out, things changed for us. But just to talk about that a little bit, that's the single longest longevity experiment on mammals known to man. Right. Wow. So the next best way that I'm aware of, like scouring the literature, is if you starve yourself half to death, you can extend your life by 10 to 15%. I often tell that to people and they're like, well, but why? Like 10% to 15% longer of a starving life.
It sounds like it would be kind of like, hey, if you smoke or drink, you're kind of doing the opposite effect. And so when someone says, well, why? It's like, well, think about it. People do all this other crazy stuff, but they never think of the other way, how to get that back.
Yeah. That's very true. Like actually, there's some interesting studies. I think I'm trying to remember what book it was that talked about how smokers don't they don't underestimate how much damage they're doing to their bodies. They actually overestimate how much damage they're doing through their bodies, and they do it still, which is, an interesting mindset situation.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. So between 1991 and 2012, what was the primary use of this, and who was kind of your customer then, and how's that switched now?
So from a business perspective, I think it's really interesting. When we wrote our first business proposal or our business plan, the plan was based entirely on us selling material directly into the University of Houston, where my business partner had been working. The irony, or if you're kind of familiar with how business plans tend to play out, we have yet to sell that material into the University of Houston. They kind of changed their focus on research, and we were selling to places like the Naval Aeronautical Weapons Station. We were selling to IBM. Every research institution around the globe we would sell to. And NASA, we sold to NASA. We actually, their big facility is here in Houston. So we'd actually go down there and check out the booths and talk to the people about the research that they're doing. So yeah, those are kind of the customers that we would sell into. And that, wasn't, kind of supplement related, if you will. Sure.
And so now 2012, you find out, this study, and then all of a sudden, my guess is you immediately are getting into the supplement industry, which is like a complete different animal.
Yeah. So imagine like we've got this hat on, and this is our carbon nanomaterial hat. And 2012, this study comes out. By about mid 2013, we start getting phone calls, and people are like, "Hey, how much in a dose?" And so with this carbon nanomaterial hat, we're like, "No, wait, no, like you put it in solar cells, you put it in batteries, you put it in car tires, you don't put it in your body." And despite like the literature was clear, they had injected it under the powder under rat's skin, and the body, their rats just excreted it. They were worried about kind of asbestos-like reactions, and so they had rats inhale the product, and they just excreted it. So the literature was pretty safe, but our hat was still, carbon nanomaterial scientists. So in 2013, for the first time, we added not for human consumption to our packaging. And so we did offer the ESS 60 in olive oil, which is the original formulation. And that was for the purposes of recreating the rat experiment. But really, we didn't throw our hats into the supplement ring, if that makes sense, right? We didn't do that until fast forward another 5 years. In 2017, there's a guy by the name of Cliff High who has a big YouTube following. He talks about finance, he talks about Bitcoins, and he was taking ESS 60 and he started talking about the benefits that he was getting. The industry sold out. Like everybody ran out except for us. We're actually the largest manufacturer and distributor of this material, ESS 60. In fact, anybody else who's selling ESS 60 or even C60, which is potentially a lesser grade, is probably purchasing it from us because we're that manufacturer, we're that distributor.
Okay.
So that was kind of into 2017. Here's the real debate, and I think you have an appreciation for this, is like going into 2018, we didn't want to be supplement people. We didn't we're excited that we're helping people. So it's not that we're against that. But this just landed in our lap. We didn't wake up to say like, hey, we could make money. Let's go down this path. It was like, this landed in our lap and it's already making us money. Are we going to pursue this in earnest as business people? And so for me, I had two questions. The first question is moral. First and most important question was moral, which is I take the product, I've surveyed the literature. It's safe. I take it. My wife takes it. Everybody on my team takes it. And so I'm comfortable selling it to you. And then the next thing is legal from an FDA and FTC perspective. Check. We're on the right side of those organizations. So really it was 2018 that we started, that we took, not for human consumption off of the labeling and started working on more of a retail approach to getting this product out there. Because not only, one thing I didn't mention, so these rats live 90% longer. A typical Worcester rat, and that's the rat they used in that study, lives about 32 months and always dies with tumors. These rats lived 90% longer, right? And none of them had tumors when they died. Right. In fact, they killed the last rat because they were down to two. Just kudos to the researcher, because at 32 months, he could have easily shut down the experiment and said, guess what? It's not toxic, because the rats given C60 or ESS60 in olive oil outlived the control rats. But he kept that going for another 2.5 years. He's down to 2 rats. One of them dies. And he's like, okay, we got to euthanize this last one. I need to move on with my life. And so that's what happened. And again, none of those rats had tumors.
Okay. So how long have you been using this product?
So I really started in earnest in about the beginning of 2018. So right when we were making these decisions and making changes, I had taken a little bit actually way back in 2013, and then kind of latter part of 2017, but really on a daily basis. And I'm taking kind of more than recommended dose, but I take it every day.
I guess, like, what is kind of your target in this? Like, is this people looking for longevity? Is this people looking to, I think supplements kind of have these different things of, hey, there's this overall health maintenance or
right.
there's longevity. I happen to be in the biohacking space, which it's all about, hey, how long can we live, And so what is kind of your ideal person for this product?
So it's been really interesting because this product lands in my lap. I'm as suspect as anyone out there in your audience. Just in 2018, we're like, okay, we're going to go after this in earnest. And I like to have conversations with our customers. So I'll take 3 to 4 phone calls a week from inbound calls, and they're giving these amazing testimonials. And I can talk a little bit about those afterwards. But as each of these testimonials is coming in, there's a part of me that's like, well, I'm a scientist, and it's great. It's anecdotal. And we all know that there's a big difference between anecdotal results and actual, peer-reviewed published studies, or double-blind studies is really the preeminent type of study. And the testimonials just kept coming in. And so how do you sell something that sounds too good to be true is kind of your question, right? Because if I come to you and say, hey, I've got this oil and it will extend your life 90%, you're just going to be like, well, I've never heard, I've never heard of it.
Sign me up.
Yeah. Oh, you're the guy. Most people, right, are like, well, I've never even heard of anything that can extend my life 20%. So how do you, it might even be better if I'm just on this podcast saying, oh, look, it'll extend your life 15% and you don't have to starve yourself half to death. But the study is the study, right? So that's one thing. And then you start digging into like each individual vertical. It's probably a little more believable that it relieves your arthritis pain, or a little bit more believable that it relieves your back pain, or that allows you to work out like harder, or like we have a video testimonial to that. By the way, I'm starting to kind of edge into the area where I'm talking about some of the benefits. So I have to say that the FDA has not evaluated our product, and it's not intended to treat, diagnose, cure, or prevent any disease. And all of the things that I will tell you are verifiable, documented. Like our review, our reviews are what has come into me, and that I've kind of, begrudgingly accepted as the status quo for the product that we send out there.
Sure. So what have you noticed from doing this?
The number one, I had a left knee pain that went away really quickly. It's probably gone within about a week. It hasn't come back since I've been taking ESS60. The other one is better sleep. So And sleep is so important. It's absolutely important. There's a book called Why We Sleep. I just finished reading it. By the way, it's one of the scariest books I've ever read, if you can believe that, because it talks from a very scientific perspective. Here's the data. When you don't get enough sleep, your likelihood of heart disease goes up. Your likelihood of diabetes goes up. Your memory fails more often. It just affects every aspect of your life. What's interesting is people who take ESS60, if we tend to take it in the morning. That's when most people take it. People ask.
Sure.
Some people say it'll keep them up at night, which is a little bit ironic for what I'm about to say. I can tell you it doesn't keep me up at night, but I could also have a cup of coffee and go right to sleep. So I'm not the best test subject for that. Most people take it in the morning and then sleep better at night. And I'm not aware of any sleep aid that's that's like that at all. In fact, most sleep aids, and by the way, sleep aid is like a $2 billion industry according to the book, Why We Sleep. Most of them knock you out. They interrupt your in-REM and your REM sleep. And so you're not really sleeping. You're just unconscious. And so they're actually detrimental to what you really need to accomplish while you're asleep. So you take ESS 60 in the morning, and then I've got kind of 2 testimonials that really bracket sleep. One of them is a lady said she couldn't get to sleep till 1 o'clock. That was her normal sleep time. Since she's been taking ESS 60, she's been getting to sleep by 10 o'clock. That's a lot. That's a lot of sleep, and a lot of help. And I can speak to my experience with getting to sleep earlier. And then the other testimonial is my business coach says for 50 years, he always needed an alarm clock to wake up. Since he's been on ESS 60 or My Vital C, specifically that formulation, he's been waking up before the alarm clock.
Wow. Yeah, I would, we talked a little bit earlier about how, you have Oura Ring, Whoop Band. You have a lot of these things measuring HRV now and measuring actual sleep performance. Yeah. Where you can actually see. So what it is we have awake, we have light sleep, and then we have the REM, and then we have deep sleep. And what this does is actually they measure that type of sleep that you actually have. So it'd be actually interesting to find out, how much it would actually shift.
Well, how about I'll send you a couple of bottles, and then maybe we can schedule to kind of come back and you can kind of report back the data that you've gotten and your experience, pro or con, lack of experience or benefits that you've seen.
Yeah, I would love to. So that would be great. So cool. Let me ask you this, is there a supplement that, I don't want to say is similar, but is there something you could compare this to? Or is this just like a unique thing that there's nothing else to compare it to?
So as a business owner, right, I got to tell you, this is the only thing that works this way. What I can tell you, as soon as really in early 2018, as soon as we were like, okay, we're going to go down this path, for me, there were kind of 2 other questions, right? We got the moral and the legal, 2 other questions that I wanted answered, which is one, is this really the longest longevity experiment on mammals? And I haven't, I'm looking for it. I haven't you're in the biohacking space. You haven't heard of anything even close to 90%, right? So I'm still
15, 20.
Yeah. So I'm looking for that result, a better result. I haven't found that. And the other one is this really interesting question, which I know there's an answer, there's a number, but the number isn't out there. And that number is what percentage of rat studies, and we know there's a number, actually apply to humans, right? So we have this kind of innate understanding that some stuff that works on rats probably doesn't work on humans, right? Because we're not the same. But what is the percentage? And I actually posed this question. I've got his information right here on my desk. Okay, my desk's a little bit messy, but he's from the University of DePaul, and he works with rat studies, and he works with human trials, like rat study. You always have to do a rat study before you go into a human trial.
Okay.
And I asked him the question, what percentage of rat studies actually, apply to humans? And he goes, well, there's one very particular case that most people will hold up as the reason you should not trust rat studies as they apply to humans. And that case goes like this. It was a fertility drug. They gave it to the rats, and the rats were in fact more fertile. Then they gave it to humans, and they were more fertile, but the fetuses were deformed, right? So this is a disaster case, worst case scenario. But it's the kind of pinnacle case. Hey, what happens in a rat doesn't necessarily happen to humans. And then what he went on to tell me was that the fetuses of the rats were also deformed. Right? So really he's saying the one case that everyone holds up to say they're not equal is actually a misuse of the research. Like they didn't look at the fetuses in the rats. Had they done that, then they would have never given it to the humans. And so we're talking about 95 to 100% applicability between rats and humans. And so you're asking me like, what else is there? Is there anything else comparable? You know, I've got the starve yourself half to death as one. And really in the literature, this is like, if you're biohacking and you're trying to live longer, this is the only published peer-reviewed study that's out there. That's, you know, not only is it even close, it just far exceeds anything that's out there. Like you probably have heard of resveratrol and have taken it, but the data on resveratrol is not a significant extension of life.
Yeah. Isn't that why we were drinking all the wine and like 10, 15 years ago? And then everybody realized that the wine all had chemicals in it.
Yes.
Yeah.
It feels good.
Of course, like one glass a day, right?
Yep.
So you start selling this in 2018.
Yep.
Like, what have you seen, you know, in your business since that point? Like, is it just skyrocketed? Is it just trying to get it out there and like speak about this product that does all these things and has really no anything negative against it?
In terms of people reporting ill effects, no. In fact, the way the FDA works is, and this is really interesting, in on their website, and the first time I saw this way back in early 2018, it says you do not have to prove that a supplement is safe before you put it on the market, which is not exactly what everybody assumes that the FDA is doing. But when you think about, okay, I take a supplement and I take some, I don't know, wheatgrass, and I throw a little bit of niacin and maybe some vitamin C in it, that's a new supplement. People are doing that all the time. So there's no way the FDA could look at all of those, you know, concoctions, if you will, and evaluate them. So it makes sense. But what is required by the FDA is if there are any reported bad effects of a supplement, they must be reported to the FDA. Like, we don't have anything to report to the FDA. Like the kinds of things that people will report to us that are on the negative side are, it's an oil, it's olive oil. Some people don't really like olive oil. A really good olive oil will leave kind of a peppery flavor at the back of your throat. And some people don't like that. And so like, oh, is it rancid? And in my head, I'm like, well, did you throw up when you stuck it in your mouth? Because your body will reject rancid things, right?
Right.
The nice thing is, yes, there's a peppery flavor, but you take a sip of water or a bite of anything, like you can go to an Italian restaurant, you know, where they put the olive oil out, dip your bread in it. So you could actually take this product that way. The other thing is just olive oil in general. So it's a teaspoon. The typical dose is about a teaspoon. And so a teaspoon of oil doesn't sit on some people's stomach. Other than that, there's, you know, we don't have any reports of anything bad happening.
Okay.
And then, sorry. So there's one other little piece. Bad in the industry is absolutely true. So there's actually a guy, I did a video, one of the first videos I really was compelled to get involved. I had kind of taken a backseat. I was compelled to get involved into the dialogue that was going on as it relates to ESS 60 and C60. One of the guys out there is trying to sell a product C60 and C-60. It doesn't I tested it. It doesn't have any C60 in it. And by the way, the test is unbelievably simple. But we did this very simple test. I did the test on the video, proves that there's no C60 in it. And he's still selling his product. So
it's expensive olive oil.
Yes. Well, in his case, it's sunflower seed oil. And you're exactly right. He's putting what looks like amorphous carbon, which is just different kind of graphites, carbons in it. And then if you filter it, the carbons come right out. And what comes out is clear sunflower oil. What is the case with ESS 60 or C60 is it will come through as a purple solution. And so it's clear, and it's clear that it has none of the molecules in it.
There's two clears on that.
Yeah, exactly. Back to back.
So how many people are actually trying to sell this and like market this like outside of you?
So one other thing, so and as we talked at the beginning of the podcast, we're calling it ESS 60 so that people can find the real product, right? Okay. We've been delivering that real product to research institutions around the world since 1991. Actually, my company, SES Research, is mentioned in that original Bati rat study. So they used our product. So we're calling that exact formulation ESS 60. And so that's how you can know that you're getting the right product.
Okay. So ESS 60,
yes.
There are people buying that product from you.
Yes.
Carbon 60, and they're turning it into a supplement, or?
Yeah, some are putting it different oils. Some are putting it in like MCT oil or avocado oil. The original formulation, so the only formulation for which there is research, is what we call ESS 60 in olive oil. So the other oils don't have any research on them.
Okay. And what's, if you could tell me, what's the purpose of the olive oil versus all the other oils?
Okay. So, I think that's just what the researchers in that original study, they wanted to get the original molecule, that buckyball, into something that was easy to give to the rats, and they just happened to choose olive oil. So it turns out that ESS 60 is not water soluble. Right? So you can't dissolve it in water, and you can take the powder and you'll get some absorption into your body if you take the powder. But because it's not water soluble, you're not going to get much absorption. What happens when you dissolve it in olive oil is you end up with, as with any solution, you end up with monomolecular C60 or ESS 60. And so then when you're taking it, it's a lot more bioavailable to your body.
Okay. And have you injected it, or have you only taken it just through mouth?
Orally. I've only taken it orally. Some people have put it on their skin. I'll tell you, this is not recommended. I don't really this is a little bit different. Some people have put drops in their eyes and saying that they're getting benefits from it. I wouldn't do that.
And that's with the olive oil?
That's with the olive oil or MCT oil, or yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, and once you get into the biohacking space, then people are going to try to figure out all kinds of ways to deliver it.
Yeah, for sure.
So going forward, what is kind of your mission for the next year to 2 years?
So we can talk about, the testimonials just keep coming in, and we've got this it's taken me a while to really have confidence in even this study, right? The study hasn't changed, and I've been reading it over and over again and now talking about it on podcasts. And each time I'm talking about it, it just becomes more clear. This is the best research on biohacking / longevity. It's the best research out there. So people like you helping me get this message out there is one of the things that's really important. And then just from a marketing strategy, we're going to end up having to market into individual verticals to help people. And then you start working on, because everybody, okay, great, I'm taking this. It's interesting because one of the things that tends to happen with the product is it's not a wow moment, right? You take the product and your hair doesn't catch on fire, or you don't get a niacin rush or anything like that, and you just kind of go about your day. In fact, I have kind of two studies that are really interesting. So one of them, there's a lady in my office at the 2 doors down in our office, and she is actually going through chemotherapy. And what is true is ESS 60 has been shown to help in 2 ways while people are going through chemotherapy. One of them is it helps protect your regular cells, and then it also improves the efficacy of the drugs. And these are poisons. That's how they typically treat cancers, but it helps those poisons attack the cancers better, and it actually helps protect your body. And so I was and she was talking about budgetary concerns. I'm like, look, here's 4 bottles. Please start taking this. And it was probably about 15 days later. I was I was stopped by her office. So have you noticed anything? She goes, no, I've only been taking about 10 days and I haven't really noticed anything. I was well, so just how are you sleeping? She goes, oh, her eyes lit up. She was I just been posting on Facebook because I've been waking up at 5:30 in the morning. She's actually ex-military. And so 5:30 is I think is really close to right as time to get the day started. And so she said it's, multiple days, and now she just wakes up at 5:30. And that's one of the subtle things that we get regularly, because, if you wake up a little early one day, you're okay, I woke up early, whatever. And then 2 days or 3 days. And by the time you realize it, it's already habit, and you've forgotten that what started it was, in this case, my Vital C. That's the thing that started the whole thing. And I wanted to talk about my case in sleep. I definitely sleep better. And I noticed, sometimes when you've got a lot of stuff going on in your life and your brain's really going really fast, and you're on your way to bed and you're going I'm not even sure I should try because I have so much going on. I'm probably just going to sit there and toss and turn.
Yeah.
You have that same energy right? So I've had those moments, but then I get in bed and I'm asleep immediately. Like it's interesting, right? Because it's not deadening you, it's not slowing you down, it's just allowing you to sleep when you're supposed to be sleeping. So that's kind of my testimony. So it's really subtle what it's doing, and often I have to kind of prod people. But when I do prod them, it's not like me manifesting these placebo effects. It's really like she said I was tweeting, Facebooking that I was waking up so early, and now I understand why.
Oh, that's amazing. I mean, sleep alone is I don't know what the percentage is, but I would say probably 90 to 95% of people don't get quality sleep every night. And, just because you're laying in bed with your eyes closed doesn't mean you're sleeping.
Yeah. You really do have to get that REM sleep and that NREM sleep. Like you said, the deep sleep, you've really got to get that, because that's actually healing your body. Right. I think when you're after really like heavy fitness, you've got to do your workout, you've got to eat well, and you got to sleep.
Does this have any effect on like your pituitary gland, growth hormone levels? Have you measured any of that stuff? I
have not measured that stuff. I don't know if you do, and if you do regularly, then we can, we'll get those bottles over to you. Maybe it's
well, I know you can, through blood work, is you can measure your growth hormone levels, and you could probably measure them a few months after and really see. I would be more than happy to do that and find out if they change, because if you're getting a greater sleep induction of the REM and deep sleep, chances are, those levels are also improving. Yeah.
That wouldn't surprise me at all. In fact, a lot of the testimonials, right? So that arthritis pain reminds me. So we had this, we're not really set up as a retail location. Basically, we're a manufacturing facility. We got offices, but if people in Houston want to come by, they can, we'll give them the product, right? Not a big deal. I was here at the office one Sunday, and this guy knocked on the door. It was the first time anybody had really even come to our door. And I answered the door, and it felt really like clandestine. He was like, "Hey, do you have any C60, SS60? And I'm like, "Well, yes, we do." And so he came in, and I'm like, "Okay, now I've got his credit card. Like, okay, I gotta go to the web and place an order for you in order to get this," right? So I sold him that. He went off. And I noticed it was at the front of our office the other day, and I came up, and it was his third purchase. My assistant let me know that it was his third purchase, and we were running like a special on 3 bottles. So he's buying 3 bottles his third time. And I was convinced like he was going to give me some testimonials. Like, "So what have you noticed?" And he was like, "I haven't noticed anything." And I'm like, well, okay, there's some logic if you're like straight up biohacker and you've read the literature, right? So this 2012 Bhatti rat study, this is the best way. Even if I'm not feeling anything today, this is the best way to kind of have an attempt at extending my life. So that makes sense. But most people aren't that dedicated, right?
Right.
Like some people even smoke and know that they're going to die earlier. So we had this awkward moment, and then he goes, and he gestured at his knuckles, and he was like, "So does it help with arthritis?" And I was like, "Well, the FDA hasn't evaluated it, but we definitely get people who say that arthritis helps." And he goes, "Well, so my arthritis is feeling better, and I used to have like this click, click, click in my knee, and that's gone." I'm like, "Well, that sounds nice." And he goes, "I hadn't jogged for like 10 years, and I'm about to go on my 8th jog, right, in some short time frame. So I'm jogging again." I was like, "Wow, okay, well, that seems good." And then he goes, "And at work, I'm less stressed." And I was like, I just kind of looked at him, that's interesting. And he goes, "Well, let me be clear. It's the same people, it's the same job, it's the same stress level. I just feel less stressed." And in my head, I'm kind of like, well, it's too bad you're not getting any benefits.
Yeah. Other than like the 5 you just listed.
Exactly. So yeah, and that happens. You kind of prod people, and they notice things that are subtle and significant, right? It's like, okay, my arthritis is a little less painful. Well, is that or I'm jogging now. I've been wanting to jog for the last 10 years. I just haven't. And now I am. Is that a conscious decision, or is that, an artifact of really, kind of my argument would be, if you're sleeping better, you've got more energy, and good sleep could explain all of the benefits that people are reporting to us.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of sounds like I come from, 20 years of personal training and then also coaching clients. Is like you have to point out the results of, well, what's changed for you since you've been doing this. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, I don't think the diet's working, but for some reason I have more energy now and I actually feel better. And you know what? My clothes are actually fitting looser, but I don't think the diet's working.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're like, hello, it's all intertwined. It's all related.
Yeah. So where do people pick this up at? Like if people out here listening,
go to the website, and the website is myvitalc.com.
Like, what's the big vision for you, man? Like coming up with this?
So I really, the next step is to get this. We've got a huge marketing struggle, right? Like at this point, our manufacturing's fine. We've got great consistency. We're getting great testimonials. This is just, how do we market this and get this to as many people as possible? And if they get great results, or I've got to query them to kind of show them the great results, great. And if they don't get great results, that's okay, because so many people are. So it's really a marketing. What is the strategy behind the marketing to get this to the most people? And I know that's going to involve, influencers like you. It's going to involve different verticals, right? So some people have reported hair growth and hair that's growing back in, not gray, but the original hair color. There'll probably be a vertical for arthritis. There'll probably be a vertical. We get some really kind of heartfelt testimonials as it relates to like Alzheimer's and dementia. There's one testimonial that we have about Parkinsonians like tremors that have been reduced. So we'll probably have to go after each one of these verticals from a marketing perspective to get, again, it's going to double you. Like if I say it's going to double your life or your money back, you're going to like run from that snake oil salesperson. And that's not what we want to do. We want to get this product in people's hands.
Yeah. If you can change my gray, man, or at least part of it, I'm sold.
All right. Well, we'll get you 3 bottles out and we'll get you can monitor your sleep. And if you want to do that blood work, that'll be great. And we'll see what happens.
So is there any last words you want to leave for anybody that's this?
I guess really kind of the message, like my personal message would be, I'm as suspect as you. We are in fact driving some research. So we're going to reproduce that original study. So that's one of the first things, and from an evidence-based perspective is, okay, well, great, we have the study. Now we need to reproduce that study. By the way, something really interesting that's in that study that we won't do. So a typical Worcester rat lives 32 months. They didn't start giving doses to the rats until month 10. And then they stopped at month 17. So 7 of the 32 months, they gave those doses. And even though they weren't dosed the whole time, they lived, the rats given ESS 60 and olive oil lived 90% longer. We won't do that. We're going to continue to give the rats doses and see what that extension of life looks like. Because it could be, 90% is spectacular, right? It could be more than that.
Wow. So you could also, so are you going to do this eventually to humans after that, I'm guessing?
So they'll probably.
I guess you can't really do that. I mean,
there's challenges, right? So how do we know that they've doubled their life? And you got to take a big enough sample group. And so probably it will not be, extension of life that will be tested, but it will be other things. So like I have actually tried to reach out already to the Why We Sleep author and his group in California. And so they're in a good position. Like you've got some good data of yourself, and it'll be interesting to see what that looks like. They actually, have a sleep lab where people come in and they've got the electrodes. So they know exactly how much NREM sleep and how much REM sleep, and they know all of these things. And so it would be great to get them, hey, here, take a couple bottles, give it to some of these patients, and let's look at that. So it's that type of studies that we're going to keep pushing and are more likely to happen first.
Okay, awesome. Hey man, well, I appreciate you being on here. It's been amazing hearing about your product, and I'm excited to give this a try.
Excellent. So send me your address, and then again, the website's myvitalc.com.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you so much, Jesse.
Yeah, thank you, man. If you guys are looking to connect further with a group of like-minded people, join myself and so many others in the Habit-Based Lifestyle Secrets group. This is where I'll be dropping daily habits to help you live to your full potential. If you want to be one of our next case studies and begin living this habit-based lifestyle, if you have questions, comments, concerns, or requests of guests, feel free to contact me, Jesse at habitbasedlifestyle.com. Until next episode, have a great day.
The purpose of this show is to guide you to realign with habits that get you to live the life you've always dreamed of. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with Jesse.